All right, so we'll do about like 3 to 5-ish minute who are
Okay.
you and what's your campaign about, and then we'll kind of move into the questions, and then we'll ask you stuff after.
Right on. All right, so if we are live and going, my name is Dan Stevenson. I'm a longtime teacher. I teach 8th grade US history in West Liberty, Iowa, which is about next town to the southeast for those that don't know. It's a majority Latino district. It's a small district. We've got about 1,400 students, so like about 1/10 the size of Iowa City's district. But my background is completely in education. I have a degree in history and then came to the University of Iowa here for a master's in secondary social studies education, and that is basically all I've ever done is teach. And so I am a longtime Iowa City person. I first moved here in the fall of 2001 to get residency for grad school, drove cab full time, then and through grad school. And when I was done, I left for a year, taught in Arlington, Virginia, which was a great teaching position. And I did not like living there. So I moved back to Iowa City 20 years ago now, this past summer. And so I spent a couple of years subbing, which was a great opportunity. It was kind of a hopeless time because I wondered, would I actually get a real teaching job? But it was a great time to learn a lot about schools. And, I was in all of the secondary schools in Iowa City at the time. This is before Liberty had opened, but Tate, the new Tate was down there. North Central had just opened. And I really appreciated the perspective that I got by being in all different classrooms and parts of schools, and then thankfully I got the job that I have now. I am very active in our local teachers union, the West Liberty Education Association. Through that, I've done a lot of work within the district, negotiating contracts, supporting members, working with administration, through through the pandemic, and just spent a lot of that time hands-on with the district, helping them both make good decisions and helping them, almost more importantly, communicate the good decisions that were made. Also have been involved with the ISEA. I was our regional, we had before our current organizational structure, I was the East Central UNISERV unit president for 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of, my professional and union background. On a personal level, I have 2 kids who are 12 and 14. My son is a 7th grader at Southeast, and my daughter is a freshman at City High. So I'm invested in our community. I'm invested in education. I have children in the district. And so really school board feels like and is a very natural way for me to be able to continue supporting all of those things: education, educators, and students. So that's why I'm running.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for talking to us. First question, and you've touched on this a little bit, so can expand on it a little bit if you'd like. What experiences do you bring to the table for this position?
So, I mean, it is, I mentioned I've been, completing all of these surveys and writing all this stuff, which I much prefer to just talk about it. But in writing that, there's, a phrase that I wrote and that, Greg really commented on is, none of these topics are hypothetical. None of these topics are new to me. These are the issues that face our district, the issues that face our educators, and the needs of our students are all things that I know and understand. Obviously, there's a lot for me to learn about Iowa City, about district policies, but I know how districts work. I know how districts can work. I've seen districts not work well, and so I'm really committed to being a part of helping the Iowa City Community School District continue to do great things for our students. Yeah.
And then moving on to the second, if elected, what are your immediate policy priorities for the school district?
So I think, school board is, in a way, all boards are this way. Our school board has the one employee, of course, the superintendent. I didn't mention I've spent 4 years on the Iowa City Public Library Board. When we couldn't afford to live in Iowa City, we lived in West Branch for 8 years, and I was on the West Branch Public Library Board. So I have a realistic understanding of the role of the board, right? And it does come down to the policies that we set as a board, right? Looking at our past policies and looking at the issues that we face and trying to continue to find workable solutions. So I don't, I'm not coming into this. A lot of times people come into a race like this because they're pissed off about something, right? They got mad, that their school closed, which is a absolutely heartbreaking thing, or, they're mad about a specific thing. And so for me coming in, there's not something that is fueling an anger that's driving me to do something. But my priorities are supporting students and supporting teachers. I think, that has to be the driving force for the choices that we make as a board. And I think one thing that I've really been thinking a lot about and talking a lot about is the role of communication in that. Communication is something generally always something that we can use more of, but I think particularly in a time of heightened stress and pressure for our educational professionals, right? Our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our office staff, transportation, food service, nursing, right? All of these educators, right? Because they all play a role in the education of our students, have real concerns, right? Education is flat out under attack. And so my priorities is ensuring that we as a board have a complete or as true to life as possible understanding of the individual educators' concerns, right? So that we know what is going on in a building beyond just reports from administration. I know the district does a great job of doing like education nights, one Tuesday a month, where they visit different schools, learn about different programs. I think things like that are critical. Something I've thought a lot about in my union, in my district is, wanting to find ways for educators to be able to have some sort of feedback system, to be able to, surveys on school climate, on administrator effectiveness. I know that they have things going on in the district right now. I'm not totally familiar with them, but I think things like that are critical, that people's voices are able to be heard, right? Obviously, you have varieties of opinions, varieties of experiences, but if the people who are doing those jobs don't feel like their concerns are being heard, they're not going to be happy, right? You're not going to be able to make everyone happy, period. But at the very least, letting people know that their issues are heard and taken to heart. So not a specific policy item, but that is really a focus that I hope to have and work on the school board.
Yeah. Thinking about what is your plan to address intrusions from the state, or really like lack of support and the Trump administration? Right.
So we have gone from being generally neglected by the state or underserved by the Department of Education to outright hostility towards what we do in schools, right? And the ways that we do it. I am definitely concerned that there's a lot of vagueness in the ways that the divisive curriculum type laws are written, that deliberate vagueness, right? That then leaves teachers, librarians, right? The people that are actually teaching children, feeling a little bit out there in terms of being not knowing what is okay, what is not. I can say in my experience, one of my best resources in helping members with dealing with these things has been working with the statewide Teachers Association, with the ISCA. You know, that we are an organization that has legal resources, particularly in an instance where teachers don't necessarily have the full support of their administration. I really have appreciated what Iowa City has done to try to have district-wide policies that are not overly prescriptive, which I understand because, you know, from the district's perspective, if they're going to say, you know, because of this law, we have to teach this, they will give the most legalistic, you know, cover your rear end, tight interpretation of the laws, and they don't want to do that. So I think the what is I don't know, the sweet spot there is to give educators enough autonomy that they feel like they can teach what they believe honestly, while also letting those teachers know that you have their back, right? And so I think from a school board perspective, I think, you know, openly sharing our values, so even outside of like specific policy, but right, like sharing our values of caring about actual education, right? True education. I think that's incredibly important. And I don't know on some of the bigger ticket items, right? I'm sure you guys have seen the investigation into Des Moines schools based on diversity policies from 2021. Like, you know, I think a lot of that stuff we can't, like, we do have to do certain things and not have jobs with certain titles, and you know, there are programs that have had to change, but we can't, I don't know, like cede too much because they're going to do these things regardless almost. You know, I'm not advocating that we, you know, openly defy state law, but I'm also saying that we need to not overly comply in advance either, right? So, and there are no easy answers on these things, right? And sadly, that is how it is designed, right? With a lack of guidance, you know, here are some ways that we can let people in our communities drive what happens in our schools, instead of the actual trained, you know, professional teachers who have a background in teaching and in, you know, curating lessons that drive student learning and critical thinking. Our librarians who have a background in curating.
Feel that.
Yeah, right. Like, you know, we have people that are professionals in their field. So as much as we can give them the latitude to be professionals, the better our students will be because of that.
Yeah. Also related, what steps will you take to support and engage with your unionized workforce?
Yes, so Iowa City has 5 unionized groups, nutritionists, paras, the physical plant, teachers, of course, and secretaries. I know paras and teachers are through the transportation. Might be my wrong list. Anyway, there are 5 organized groups. Transportation is outsourced, but they are unionized through the Teamsters. I mean, definitely engaging in good faith with them. Iowa City has done everything right. I've pointed to Iowa City as an example in my negotiations in West Liberty that Iowa City has, kept all permissive bargaining language, which is critical and which also critically doesn't cost a district any money. That's a big issue. West Liberty, we are a smaller district. Our teachers, I make a lot less than if we were to teach here in the Iowa City Community School District. But I've always pushed like, look, for no money, you can just put things back in our contract and we will be able to say, look at how much our schools support us. We've got some language, but so definitely, that is the minimum, making sure that we are negotiating everything that we can in good faith, that we are dedicating the financial resources that we have to our people, that money does not sit in a district bank account, that it's getting spent. Iowa City's done a great job of that. In the last few years, they things got pretty tight. They've made some changes, both to eliminating positions through attrition, closing a building, things that have been difficult choices, but have put the district in a better position going forward to be able to continue to spend that money on the people who make education great for our kids.
Yeah, and I guess related to financial, what are your budgetary priorities for the school district? And what adjustments, if any, would you make?
So, my general philosophy is the more money that we can spend on things that are direct impact to our students, right? Particularly our students with additional needs. And so the district does a great job with their weighted resource allocation model, right? Where you do have, additional funds and staffing going into schools with higher levels of need as identified on a variety of metrics. But fundamentally, the more money that we can spend that is directly creating opportunities for success for kids, right? So, and that means, the special education paras who are working directly with students with special needs. That's for ESL teachers. That's for, those people largely that are there with the kids, right? So that is always what we need to spend money on. Obviously, administrative tasks are incredibly important as well, especially in a district this size. But in general terms, we're better off spending our money on the people that have the direct effects on our kids in their schools and in their classrooms.
Yeah. And then kind of getting more into teaching related things, what do you think the appropriate role of technology is in the classroom?
Yeah, right?
A teaching tool, are we letting cell phones in?
So no, that's one I'm an easy no on, much to the chagrin of my 14-year-old daughter who needs her earbuds in to be able to focus. No, I'm fully, I've never allowed cell phone use in my classroom. And obviously that's a fight that it's been going very well recently. I've had different years where it's like, man, you're fighting so hard against it. And at a certain point, I understand when people kind of throw up their hands. But I'm a big supporter of Iowa City's current model. I know there are basically cell phone use is restricted during instructional time, so like I'll get a text from one of my kids in the afternoon and I'll text back and say, "Bud, put your phone away." And he said, "It's passing time, silly." So, I know there are definitely people, and I'm sympathetic to the idea that our kids would be better without phones, like from the morning bell to the afternoon bell. I think as a teacher, when we explicitly moved to allowing the students to check their phones during passing time, it has become a lot less of an issue in the classroom because they know they'll be able to check their phone at the end of the period. So that's on phones. I think the other one obviously is, that we have gone one-to-one in so many schools. I personally have moved way back away from, teaching with online activities, during hybrid learning and virtual learning. I created online versions of all of the activities that I do in my classroom. And I think I made them pretty good for when we had to do that. But I find anymore, that just the distractions of being online can be too much. That being said, obviously our kids are online a lot. They are on their phones a lot. And so I've been glad to see a lot of the things that we've done with lessons related to just better usage, right? Critical thinking related to sources of information, means of communication, accessing information. So definitely I am not a fan of all online curriculums, which is the way a lot of things have gone. And I understand a lot of the reasons for that. But I think it's important that we are intentional in the ways that we implement the use of technology, right? That we have justifications for what we're doing, not just because, it's easy to, click here and it's assigned and then I can see when you have it done and whatever. And then also teaching those skills about digital citizenship, as they like to say. So,
yeah. And then also kind of connected to technology, how has the ICCSD addressed post-pandemic learning challenges? And what further steps do you think need to be taken to recover?
So I looked through the state report cards came out recently. And I, as a educator, I am always fairly I take those sorts of state reports and those sorts of test scores, right? That overall focus on test scores to be not enough information. I think coming out of the pandemic, yes, students definitely have had increased needs. But that's what we've always done in education is, we meet kids where they are and we help them grow. So I've seen great evidence of that within the district, looking at the report cards. I think an area of concern in Iowa City in the news recently is, issues of student behavior post-pandemic. And I think I've been really careful to share that these are not Iowa City specific problems, because I know, and they are Iowa City specific problems. I'm not minimizing concerns at all, but I want people to have a big picture realization that these are issues faced by schools across the state, across the nation. We are dealing with kids with a larger set of needs coming out of the pandemic, right? And so is that because they were online? Is that because they were isolated? Is that, there's myriad reasons why kids have increased needs. And so I think my view, one of my concerns when you see people expressing concern about it is there's this general notion that Iowa City has taken a overly political, by which they want to say politically correct, approach to discipline, right? And so they do have comprehensive behavior policies in the district that I am in support of. Our district has really emphasized moving away from a sort of punitive discipline model to a supportive discipline approach, right? So that we are focusing on meeting students' needs, from mental health and nutrition and transportation, all of those things, right? That the more that we can invest in those things, the more that we can invest in having counselors in every building, the more that we can invest in, they, for example, basically stopped suspending children between kindergarten and second grade, which I don't think out of school suspension serves anyone. I don't see that as something that helps kids learn to behave better. So I really have supported those moves within the district to being a more process-focused behavior approach support and positive process-focused behavior support, as opposed to a punitive and sort of punishment-focused approach. So, that big picture, I think the district is doing fantastic things. That said, there will always be incidents within schools, for a variety of reasons. And so I think the way that the individual school, the way that the individual building administrator responds in the moment that there is an issue and in the aftermath of whatever the issue is, to make sure that teachers and students are receiving the supports that they need, as a result of an incident in the classroom, a violent behavior or whatever traumatic event there might be. And then, so there's the big picture district policy, that local issue within a building of how things are addressed by an administrator, right? How do teachers signal for help in the classroom, right? What is the response that they get when they do need help? And then I think the last piece of that is so critical gets back to what I talked about previously about communication, right? Is making sure that teachers and paraprofessionals and others in our schools feel like they are able to express their concerns with things that have happened and in a way that will be heard and supported. So,
Yeah,
I mean, these things are big, right? I try to sum it up in a few minutes, but these are huge issues that we deal with.
yeah. And then kind of final bigger question is, what distinguishes you from others in the race?
I mean, I am a teacher, right? This is education is my life. It's all I've done aside from driving cab. And we have board members who have taught, which is incredibly valuable. We have board members who are married to teachers, which is incredibly valuable. But I really think there is value in having a teacher at the table, right? As we discuss policies, because like I was saying earlier, these issues are not abstract to me. They are ones that I've lived, ones that I have worked in my whole career. So
Yeah. Well, and lastly, where can people reach you if they want to get involved with your campaign? I mean, they can talk to Greg, but
yes, right. Cog people,
yeah,
hit up Greg Wickenkamp. So I have a website, danstevenson.org. I've gone to that for about 10 years, never with any idea what the heck I do with it. That is my campaign website now. And then I do have a campaign email, is DanforBoard@gmail.com. I'm definitely open to hearing from your members, from anyone that has interests and concerns with our district. I think, people will tell me, and they're like, oh, well, I don't have kids. I'm like, well, your public schools really matter to your community regardless, right?
Iowa City students in our classroom, and we deal with
Right.
same issues, slightly different way, but not too different.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, no, please let people know to reach out to me, and yeah, both obviously between now and a month from now when we have the election, and hopefully thereafter. So
sure. Yeah. Jess, Michael, do you have any questions?
I have a question. Oh, is somebody else gonna go?
Go ahead, Jess.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. I guess my question is, I'm don't have a child in school district, so I'm not as familiar with this, but I was just reading the other day about the prevalence of essentially like banning books in school libraries for different reasons. And I was just like, the first part of my question is this been an issue in the schools around here? And if it has, what can you do to push back against that? And keep books that represent students of, all students, minoritized students, help them with representation issues, different things like that. What is something that you can do to push back against that?
Yeah, so Iowa City Schools did do a review of books in our schools and did publish a list of books that were for a time removed from the shelves. Those books are back on as the legal cases surrounding these laws have been put on hold, appealed, injunctions, etc. And so I guess I have appreciated that Iowa City Schools was very public about it and shared a list of books, and I can tell you Iowa City took a fair amount of heat for that, but I think in some ways it does people well to know that these are the effects of the laws that have been passed, right? And then also because there are individual penalties related to a lot of these laws on educators to try to not be putting those educators in specific legal peril. I can tell you other districts that I'm familiar with have had a similar but much less public process, right? So that people don't even necessarily know that books have been removed. I think a big thing that the board can do is push back on the legal recommendations that the district gets from its law firms or firm. The great example is that Iowa City Schools removed gender identity from their board policies at the advice of legal counsel. Subsequently, after great reporting by Grace King for the Gazette, a truly great education reporter, they learned that they needn't have done that and reinstated those protections into their policy. So I think pushing back against the legal recommendations, looking for better sources, and then also helping our kids to access books in other places. So for example, today I saw the West High School student group has a banned book display at the Iowa City Public Library by the Holds shelf. And I thought, what a great way to, give students to empower kids to share books and publicize books and, access to books that are in limbo, sadly. So, creative means like that, I think, are important as well. Access for students to books through the bookmobile, so we need to definitely push back on those legal recommendations, but then also take a bigger community approach to ensuring that our kids have access to books that represent them and that empower them.
Thank you.
I had a couple questions, but one of them you already answered, which was gonna be about how state standards get revised and how what their need to teach or not so much teach. You're gonna advocate for the school board allows this, the professionals have latitude to do what they want. So I was gonna ask, you already answered that in my opinion. So I was gonna ask maybe a broader philosophical question of what do you think the role of education is, and how would you shepherd that on the school board?
I mean, helping kids develop into people. You know, really, I have on my desk at work the bumper sticker that I got when I joined the National Council for the Social Studies when I was in grad school. Today's social studies, creating effective citizens. And so really, I think giving students the opportunity to discover themselves, to discover something bigger than themselves, and to give them the tools to go into the world and do something about these things. So, you know, creating opportunities for kids that challenge them, that push them, and that also like tangibly prepare them for the real world. You know, I teach 8th grade US history. I love it. You know, I teach kids, you know, skills around thinking and communicating and learning and all of that. But I also really enjoy, I co-teach 8th grade careers class. And, you know, I really enjoy doing that, helping kids. You know, one of the big things we do is look at their 4-year plan. One of the things we do is, you know, look at, you know, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And then help give specific tools to get there. Right. So, you know, both those like specific tangible tools for success, whatever you're doing, right? Whatever field you want to go into, you know, if you want to go into the workforce, helping you find better jobs through union apprenticeships. If you want to, you know, go into the military, if you want to go to college, if you want to start in community college, right, is really helping connect kids to those opportunities. My partner, my fiance, is a career and college counselor for the Iowa College Access Network, which is a nonprofit. And so I am endlessly amazed at the number of opportunities that our kids across the state, but then also right here in Iowa City, have to develop themselves and look forward to wherever they're headed next.
Thanks.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much for your time. If there's anything else that we didn't cover that you think would be good to add?
Empowering professionals in schools, support for the people that do the work, and doing it for the students. I mean, we hit on all of those, but just I'll end with that on that note. So
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.